Gotcha! What's up guys? Today I want to show you my blaster setup when it comes to night games. This blaster here is the Milsig M79 foam dart blaster, but I use the exact same setup when it comes to gel blasters at night. My nighttime setup consists of two different devices. The first of those is a Hikmicro TH25 thermal scope, which can do some pretty cool things like record video and select between 4 different color palettes. And secondly, to complement the thermal scope, I have the biggest, brightest, most fuck-off torch that Olight makes. Olightstore.com.au, discount code BRAD to save 10%. Now in solo play, I pretty much just use the thermal scope because that's all I need. But when I want to point out enemies to my teammates, I unleash the power of the sun gods with the Olight Javelot Turbo. The Javelot Turbo has a range of over 1 kilometer with its beam of light, and the thermal scope can see up to 800 meters, so they work quite well together. In this video today, I'll talk a little bit about both of these, and then I'll end with some sample gameplay footage. Let's get started. I'll begin things today by talking about the Olight Javelot Turbo. Recently, at a 24-hour milsim, we had a large tower at our base that could overlook and see all around, and one of our teammates had a thermal scope up there as well as a Javelot Turbo. Whenever an enemy tried to attack, they'd just light them up with a torch and all of us could see them. It was ridiculously OP. Now the Javelot Turbo starts off at a price of $369.95 Australian dollars, but Olight are always having flash sales year round, and if they're not having a sale, you can always save 10% with the discount code BRAD. The Javelot Turbo is water resistant, drop resistant, and it can also function as a makeshift bludgeoning tool. It kind of reminds me of the old Maglights with its build quality. It has a maximum reach of 1.3 kilometers, and on paper it has a Candela of 422,500. On the maximum brightness setting, you'll get 10 minutes of use out of it, before it drops down to half power for a further 2 hours. There are 4 different brightness settings to choose from though, and the dimmest of those will actually last 13 days of constant use. So this could actually be useful for a survival scenario as well. In the included hard case, you get a red filter and a green filter. These are very important in the sport of gel ball because most fields have a ban on pure white light, because of how it can affect your natural eye's night vision. These simply friction fit on the front of the torch, and they do dim it down a little bit, but not as much as you might expect. Also included, you get a pressure switch. You don't have to use it, but I prefer it. If you're not using the pressure switch, you can actually just push the button on the back of the torch to turn it on and off. The button on the side of the torch here allows cycling through 4 different brightness levels. And in the center of the button is an LED indicator for how much power is left in the torch. It changes between green for full, yellow for about half power, and red for when it's getting low. When it does get low on charge, you simply recharge it magnetically, same as the pressure switch. Simply goes on the back of the torch, and the other end of the charging cable is terminated in USB, so you'll be able to recharge it off battery packs out in the field quite easily. One final thing inside the case is a mount to attach it to your scope. Unfortunately, this is a bit too narrow to fit over my thermal scope, but on a normal hunting scope, it would definitely fit. You could use this to mount it to the front of your barrel, but I've just opted for a regular torch mount that goes on the Picatinny itself. The case itself is really high quality with foam cutouts for all of your accessories inside. It reminds me of Pelican cases with how hard it is. Next up, let's talk about the Hikmicro TH25 Smart Thermal Scope that I bought from nightvision.com.au. This is an entry-level thermal scope, which after comparing it to all the other offerings in this price range, it has the best image quality at the $3,299 price point. It takes 2 CR123 batteries, I opted for rechargeables, and it lasts 4.5 hours of runtime. It can detect differences in heat out to 800 meters, and it has a magnification of 1.5 times, so you can actually use it in CQB. It does also have digital zoom, but it gets pixelated the further you go in, just like if you zoom in on your phone camera. There's also a setting for picture-in-picture, which puts a tiny little zoomed in part of the frame up in the corner of the screen. That's good for actual hunting to help you identify what the target is. In gel ball, I personally wouldn't use that. There are 4 different color palettes to choose from, Personally, I prefer white hot because most of the frame will be dark except for what's hot, so your targets, so it's less intense on your eyes. But it also offers black hot or fusion or even red hot, which is the same as white hot, but it makes the brightest thing in the frame red. There are multiple different reticles to choose from, and you can easily move the reticle up or down or left or right to zero the scope. It can remember where you moved each reticle, so depending on which blaster you're using this on, or even if you also use this on a real rifle from time to time, it can remember where each reticle was set. So you can keep a zero for multiple different blasters. On top of the scope, there's a button with a picture of a little camera on it. If you push that once, it'll take a still frame photo of whatever's in the scope at the time. If you hold it in for a few seconds, it'll actually start recording video. It will show a little time code up in the left corner to let you know that it's recording. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't record audio. So to capture the audio, what I used was a GoPro on my head, and then to synchronize the video between the two cameras and get the audio synchronized, I did a clap in front of the thermal scope so that I could see the clap and then synchronize it with the audio. The thermal scope has an internal storage of 16 gigabytes and it only uses about 1 gigabyte per hour of recording, so I haven't come anywhere near close to filling this yet. To offload your footage though, it uses USB-C in a little cover on the side of the scope. Overall, I've really enjoyed using the thermal scope torch combination so far. Thermal scope mostly when I'm soloing, and then I can use it for target ID and lighting up targets for my teammates with the torch. I just thought this would be something pretty cool to show you guys and you might find it interesting, even if you can't afford the $3,000 for a thermal scope. One of these torches is less than $300 with my discount code, and it's the brightest one that I've ever seen. I'll end off the video now showing you some sample footage. What you'll see is a combination of footage taken through the thermal scope with its built-in recording function. You'll also see some footage from my camera pointed at the target showing you the brightness of the torch. Then I'll also have some GoPro footage on my head just to show you how dark it was at the time of the gameplay. That's it for this video guys, hope you've enjoyed it and I'll see you on the next one. Gotcha! Hit!